Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And today it's time for some hot, sweaty World of Warships battleship action, courtesy of Baraz. Sorry, I got his name wrong already. I've barely started and I'm already making mistakes. Courtesy of Ungrim Baraz, sounds like an orc from the Lord of the Rings, in the mighty German Tier 8 battleship, the Bismarck. And this is one hell of a matchmaker for the Bismarck. First of all, he's top tier. The enemy only have one Tier 8 battleship, and it's an Amagi, and I'm pretty sure that Amagi is stock. There's only one destroyer on each team, and the carrier on the enemy team is a Ranger, Tier 7, and the Bismarck's anti-aircraft defences are pretty fearsome. They're certainly capable, as we're going to see, of dealing with a strike from a Tier 7 carrier. A couple of things I liked about this battle. It's relatively short by World of Warships standards. The battles do tend to last longer than a similar battle in World of Tanks, although I did receive a replay today of a World of Warships battle. In fact, it was on this very map. That was over in just a fraction over 4 minutes. Amusing though it was from the perspective of the Fubuki destroyer on the friendly team, it was kind of boring to watch. This battle, anything but. Another thing that I liked about this game was that the players talked to each other. In particular, Ungrim Baraz here in the Bismarck, and the other German battleship on the team, the Tier 7 Gneisenau. They communicated with each other and kept each other apprised of their intentions all the way through this game. So that was very good to see. Also, the battleships weren't afraid of getting stuck in. These guys are leading from the front. Unfortunately, leading from the front is something that Amagi over there is about to regret, as the Bismarck spots him and shoots first, and judging by the Amagi's silhouette, I think he's stock. I'm not entirely sure, but well, he's just lost nearly 30,000 health with 2 citadels, 1 over penetration, just wow. What a way to start for both of them. I know Ungrim Baraz isn't going to be complaining, but that poor Amagi. First enemy ship he sees and he takes half of his health off. Amagi's return fire. Again, it's going to take some time to get here as the shells pass each other in midair, but not terribly accurate. And nowhere near as impressive a second salvo from Ungrim, but hey, it's more damage. Now they've just spotted an enemy hipper over there. And any second now, there he is, a Bayern. Now, which way is he going to go? At the moment he's capping Bravo, and if he were to continue in the direction of the Bayern and the Amagi, he'd basically be sailing into the middle of nowhere, so he decides to pull a turn to starboard, get the island between him and them, and continue capping Bravo, and then that leaves his options open. If they manage to successfully capture Bravo, they can continue over to Alpha, down to the southwest, or head up to the northeast and capture Charlie, although Charlie has already been capped, but there's some heavy pressure coming in on it. Now, I'm switching to free camera here just so you can look around and see the kind of support that he has here. He's inside the anti-aircraft defense range of 2 friendly cruisers. Now, pushing forward and getting stuck in battleships is all good, but try not to be suicidal about it. You need to have some kind of support, particularly when there are enemy strike aircraft coming in. Here come the torpedo bombers and the dive bombers. His AA guns are already working them over. He's slowing and turning and is going to avoid every single one of those torpedoes, and not one of those torpedo bombers has made it out. Now, a lot of the time when you're in a battleship, turning to avoid torpedoes can put you into a worse position as far as the guns of the enemy ships are concerned. You can turn so much in order to avoid those torpedoes that you end up showing the side of your ship to all the enemy big guns. But his turn to starboard to avoid the torpedoes meant that that wasn't the case here. Whole bunch of enemy ships up here putting pressure on Charlie. Torpedoes coming in from behind, that's almost certainly the Leander. Wants to swing around and make sure none of those clip him. But notice that his secondary is already opening up and scoring hits on that Leander at a range of 9 kilometers. And when he turned and swung the back end of the ship around, presenting the broadside of the ship to all of these enemy ships, putting the pressure on Charlie over there, not one of them was paying any attention. They're all focusing on killing, and they have just killed the Nürnberg cruiser, who was the only other thing there stopping them from completing their capture of Charlie. And right now, Ungrim's got a choice. Which way is he going to go? He can head for Alpha, he can head for Charlie. He's captured Bravo, And again, this is where communication plays a vital role, because the Gneisenau and his team, who has the most amazing name, by the way, Captain Cockslap, and I'm not making that up, said in chat, let's go and secure Charlie. And so now he knows he's going to get some kind of support and backup if he heads that way, so... And, oh, hello, Mr. New Orleans. That's a very, very nice ship you've got. Would be a real shame if somebody was to hit it with some high-caliber armor piercing. And, yeah. And, of course, there are better targets over here for him to shoot at. Lots of broadsides of enemy cruisers. There's the Auber, there's the New Orleans, and, oh, hello, here comes some armor piercing, by the look of it. And... was that a cruiser? Judging by the rate of fire, that is a cruiser. Some high explosive from the New Orleans sets him on fire. I think he's upset the New Orleans for some reason. Turning his guns on the Auber this time, of course, and that, by the way, that's his secondary batteries opening up with high explosive. And scoring hits, and the Citadel on the Auber as well. And that is definitely in Nuremberg, firing armor piercing into the side of the ship. Now he is hitting, and he is doing some damage, but wait until you see the battle results. And then ask yourself just how much differently this match could have ended, judging by the amount of hits the Nuremberg scored, if he'd been firing high explosive instead of armor piercing. But now, however, the secondaries are still lighting that Auber up. Now there are torpedo bombers heading this way, and it's entirely possible the Auber has managed to fire some torpedoes in this direction as well, so he's turned his hydroacoustic search on to give him advance warning of any torpedoes in the water. And there's the Nuremberg, still firing AP, only this time he's firing it at an angled battleship. Well, if you like AP, Mr. Nuremberg, we've got some AP as well. How'd you like them apples? His secondaries are now shooting at the Nuremberg, and he didn't have to worry too much about the torpedo bombers, because the friendly carrier has vectored fighters overhead. Didn't even need to look, you can tell just by looking at the map. That Nuremberg is now not feeling very clever at all. But he's still inside secondary battery range, and the secondaries are still shooting at him. Right now that Nuremberg is the only thing preventing him from starting to cap Charlie, and he's heading, well, too slow. That was a secondary gun battery kill. There's the close quarters expert badge. Close quarters expert, he sank him 9 kilometers away. Ungrim does have a full secondary build on his Bismarck. It's definitely the way to go on this ship. He's got a 16-point captain with all of the skills that buff his secondary batteries. The secondaries on the Bismarck with a 16-point captain and all the various different modules that go towards increasing the rate of fire and accuracy of your secondaries is an absolute monster. It is hell on wheels for anybody that gets closer than 10 kilometers to this ship. I don't care what kind of ship you're in, destroyer, carrier, cruiser, even another battleship, respect the Bismarck's secondaries. They are lethal. More dive bombers coming in from the rear, but it's a depleted squadron, which means they've probably already dropped their bombs and they're no real threat, and they're just more target practice for his anti-aircraft gunners. As the Cleveland over there heads in to engage the Leander. Leander's got some torpedoes in the water, but the Cleveland has seen them, and there's the enemy Ranger. Now the Ranger is not alone. There's a Bayern with him on pretty much full health. And the Cleveland over there was having a surprisingly hard time dealing with the Leander, and that's because this Bayern is shooting at the Cleveland and paying no attention whatsoever to Ungrim Baraz as he gives him the perfect broadside to shoot at. There's the New Orleans. He's definitely upset the New Orleans, and his secondaries are now opening up on the Leander as well. But oh, hang on. Scored a hit on the Bayern. Nothing serious. Here come the torpedo bombers. His AA gunners are already opening up. He starts taking evasive maneuvers. He's got no support here from any of the other friendly cruisers. He's going to have to do it all himself. But, well, just look at this. He's already committed to the turn. He's doing everything he can as far as maneuvering is concerned, so he takes the time to stop and aim at the New Orleans. And I do not know why the carrier took so long to actually commit to the attack, but he's lost every single one of his torpedo bombers and only managed to get one torpedo away. That torpedo, however, is going to hit. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope it doesn't cause any flooding, and it doesn't. All the way through that exchange, however, his secondaries have been keeping up a continuous bombardment on that Bayern, and they're still going for it, and they've set him on fire in 2 separate places. Ungrim puts a lot of lead down range at that Bayern, but he doesn't do an awful lot of damage to him with his main battery guns. He does a lot of damage to him with his secondaries, however. I think it was something like 62,000 damage in total, and the vast majority of that was both from direct hits from his secondary batteries and the fires that the secondary batteries started. He's lighting them up again with the main guns, but they're just not really doing anything. Over penetrations, bounces, a couple of penetrations, but it's really nothing impressive. Of course, with his bows pointed towards the Bayern, and with the Bayern desperate to not expose his broadside as another dive bomber strike comes in, scores a hit, but no fire. The Bayern is only able to really fire at him with his rear gun turrets. He knows it's suicide to turn and give the side of the ship to the Bismarck. Secondaries keep scoring hits. Anti-aircraft gunners now getting some target practice in on some enemy fighters. He knows there's a Ranger around that corner, but remember there's also a New Orleans coming around that corner. Now, getting up close and personal with the battleship, there's the New Orleans, and he's hit and he's burning. He's extinguished the fire. Torpedo bombers coming in. Getting up close and personal in a battleship is a good thing in a game of World of Warships, but you can get too close. How close is too close? If you're close enough that you're giving an enemy ship a shot into the side of your ship, you've gotten too close. And Ungrim may have gotten too close, because now he's given the Bayern the side of the ship to shoot at. But what are his options? Get hit by torpedoes, or take the chance that the Bayern is going to miss. And the Bayern does not miss. Takes full advantage of that, and oh dear, we appear to have run ourselves aground. The Bismarck's crew are having an impromptu beach party. The good news is he's nailed the torpedo bombers, but he needs to reduce the number of guns shooting at him pronto. His secondaries are keeping up the barrage on the Bayern. That frees up his main battery guns to sink, yes, the New Orleans. He's launched his catapult fighter. There is another wave of enemy strike aircraft coming in. He's burning. The Bayern's taking full advantage of his error, put as many shots into the side of his ship as possible. Here come the dive bombers. His damage control ability is on cooldown. Those dive bombers don't miss. He's now burning in 3 separate places, but he only has to wait just less than 10 seconds before he can put the fire out. Imagine now if that Nürnberg had been firing high explosive at him earlier, instead of ineffectually bouncing off him with armor piercing. And the fire is out, and he can start getting some repairs underway. That was bloody close. This Ranger, by the way, has survived multiple point-blank range salvos from the Bismarck's main battery guns, and all they're doing is over-penetrating as he takes another hit from the Bayern. Watch, here we go. Point-blank range, all over-penetrated. Once again, his secondaries are doing more damage. What the Ranger should already have been trying to do was get off the rocks and ram the Bismarck, but instead he stays on the rocks, just tries to get another strike package launched, and Ungrim finally gets a Citadel on the Ranger. Total overkill, of course, but it's enough to get the kill and win the game. Unsurprisingly, top of the team with 3 kills, 29 aircraft shot down, and 2,763 base experience, as well as a whole clutch of Battle Hero awards. But have a look at the damage numbers. He did just under 200,000 damage in that game, but just over half of that was done by his main battery armor piercing. He did 44,621 damage with his secondary gun batteries, and a further 33,129 damage with the fires set by the high explosive shells from those secondary gun batteries. If you have a look at the damage breakdown per ship, it's even more amusing. He did 31,000 damage to the Ranger, but only 6,800 of that with his main battery guns. The rest was all his secondary gun batteries. It's the same with the Bayern. He did 62,000 damage to that Bayern, but only 18,000 of it with his main battery guns. That's 44,000 damage, either directly or indirectly, from the secondary batteries. Taking a look at the damage that he received, and we're paying particular attention here to the damage that he received from the Nürnberg. Now, the Nürnberg almost exclusively was firing armor piercing at him, and I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to fire armor piercing at a battleship if you're in a cruiser. It depends entirely on what cruiser, the relative range involved, and the kind of angles between the two ships. But the Nürnberg is not a heavy cruiser. It doesn't have 203mm guns. It has 150mm guns, and while the armor piercing on those guns is pretty impressive and has quite high velocity, they're still just 150mm guns. If a New Orleans, for example, had been firing armor piercing at a range of 10 kilometers straight into the flat side of the Bismarck, well, he would have done substantially more than 9,600 armor piercing damage with the 26 hits that he scored. If the Nürnberg, on the other hand, at that kind of range, had been firing high explosive, with 32 hits overall, you can guarantee he would have started more than one fire, and this battle might have had a decidedly different outcome. Now, I'm certainly not sitting here trying to tell you that that team lost because the Nürnberg was firing the wrong ammunition. That's absolutely definitely not the case. I'm not trying to point the finger at the Nürnberg in particular. It was a team effort, it was a team failure. But the Nürnberg had the chance to do something decisive. He was in the right place at the right time, but he was firing the wrong ammunition. And, well, it worked out quite well for Ungrim Baraz, even if it didn't work out too well for the Nürnberg. Well, anyway, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope that as a result of watching today's video, if you haven't had the misfortune to run into a fully upgraded 16-point Captain Bismarck with a secondary build before, the next time you see a Bismarck when you're playing random battles in World of Warships, you'll treat them with a little bit of respect, at least until you find out whether or not the secondaries are firing and hitting you at a range of 10 kilometers. And if they are, well, good luck with that. That's it for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.